Hey everybody, it must be Saturday night. So here we are coming to you from West Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. Lots to talk about. Yes, we're going to wait for everyone to get on board and then we're going to begin the broadcast. So while we're waiting for people to chime in and show up, I just thought we would go and do a little bit of breaking vegan update, at least on my side. As you can see, I got Andy there. Say hello, Andy.
Hey, hello everyone.
We're just
Happy,
waiting for.
happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh yeah, happy St. Patty's Day to everybody. Yes, people wanted to have an update on how the switch to vegan dieting was going. Well, what I did was I hadn't had a physical in about 5 or 6 years, so I decided to coordinate the switch in diet protocol with getting a physical. So I got all the results back this week. And, what can I tell you? Blood work and everything, the doctor's response to everything was A1C, doesn't get better than that. Then cholesterol doesn't get better than that. HDL doesn't get better than that. Basically, all the markers of health and fitness were in line, and doctor was like, well, what did you expect? Blood pressure was 120 over 80. Now, to be fair, 5 years ago when I got, my last physical, I was pretty healthy there as well. So I don't remember the exact numbers from then, but you got to keep in mind both Andy and I are switched to all plant-based diets, except for refeed days it wasn't an overhaul, it was a tweak. We were already pretty much plant-based. And you got to consider way back in my last physical, when you're eating skinless, boneless chicken breasts, albacore tuna packed in water, and egg whites for your protein, and 1% cottage cheese. There's not a whole lot of saturated fat in there anyway. So the doctor was like, doesn't get better, doesn't get better, doesn't get better, and you shouldn't be surprised with the lifestyle you lead, which of course I wasn't, but is just more indicators. Now, the other thing I've noticed is I am definitely getting leaner, and I'm not trying to. It's just, it's an observation, and I didn't expect it to happen. I expected to go the other way, but I'm actually getting leaner. And then the other thing is in the winter, embarrassingly enough, I get pretty bad eczema on my hands. As soon as I turn on the heat in my house for the winter, I get pretty bad eczema, and I end up itching at night in my sleep, and I get all these raw skin, and it's pretty nasty looking. And it went away pretty much the first 2 weeks of going vegan. Now, you have to be careful with observations like this because that is what is called an anecdotal evidence, and anecdotal evidence is what's used on most websites to sell crap and to market bullshit. So I am reporting that just so you know. Also, my last physical 5 or 6 years ago, I was about 220, 222, and this physical I was 216. So I'm a little worried about losing 5 pounds in 5 years. That's a little too rapid in weight loss. What do you think, Andy? It's like 5 pounds in 5 years. That's like
Yeah,
1/100th of an ounce per day or something.
way.
All the indicators are there. Some anecdotal evidence is there as well, which surprised me. I didn't really think the eczema was related to diet at all, but it sure seems to be. And that, again, is anecdotal, not proof. Why don't you share some of your observations about your own body, Andy, and then we'll get on with it.
I'm definitely loving the new meals too. Still tons of energy in the gym. Strength is still up there. I haven't lost anything there. Definitely getting leaner too. That's one thing I've noticed without trying. Like I said, it's not like I'm doing anything different other than diet. So leaning out more, and it's so far so good. It's only been a few weeks, but loving it.
Yeah, my again, just to basically carbon copy of what you just said. My performance in the gym, people were wondering about that. Definitely unaffected, or if anything, even better. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What's that? Sorry.
My joint makes me feel better. That tendonitis I had in my elbow. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but it definitely feels a lot better than it did.
Keep leaning forward so we can hear you. I was losing you there a little bit. So Yeah. Margot's just saying, Margot's just saying how she just finished third week of being plant-based, lost 6 pounds, flatter stomach. Yeah, I mean, not only am I flatter in the stomach as well, Margot, but I'm fuller in the gym too. Like I just like, everything that when you train for a pump that you want, you can feel. So at my age, that's pretty, it's an interesting observation. Again, all anecdotal, but definitely. And my buddy Mike is just saying, when did we actually switch over? I didn't really make a date of it, Mike. I just know that it's been a few weeks now, and it wasn't gradual. I just, based on the research, my cognitive dissonance, I could no longer, between my feelings, my thoughts, and my beliefs, I could no longer create that triangle of awareness that was equal inside. So, you either got to step up and be counted, or shut up and be part of the problem. So it's definitely working out, though, and it's not difficult in the least. Would you agree?
No, not at all. It's been very, very easy transition for sure. And I was only eating like two meals a day anyways with animal protein before I made this switch. So it's not like I was going from, red meat and animal protein at 6 meals a day. I was only eating it twice, right? So it was a pretty easy switch over. Just like you said, just a tweak, right? So
just a tweak and not an overhaul. So yeah. So we're going to get on with it now. I'm going to start with, before we get to the training model, which is what we're here to talk about. We are going to discuss certain elements. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know how to shrink. What can I do here? Let me just play with this a little bit so you guys can see it better. No, that's what we want. Hopefully you guys can see that. And we'll get started on the lecture, and going to get a lot of input from Andy this time as well. So basically, we're going to talk about one of the founding principles of program design that's outlined in my book, The Abel Approach. And you can see the link there. You can get that at scottabelfitness.com. You can't get this book on Amazon. And then the finer details we actually put into the Program Design Masterclass. You can see it at the top there. Program Design Masterclass, all one word. You just do a search and you should come up with that. And it's all about, not only are there programs included, but it's all, we construct programs, we deconstruct programs, we reconstruct programs, and show you how program design is meant to follow a certain pattern that abides in the principles of exercise physiology, but also follows the training model, which we're about to talk about. So, but first and foremost, I want to talk about, and can everyone see that? Just throw some, because this is the first time with all of us, two of us on there, plus document. So hopefully you guys can read that. Just throw some emoticons. I can't really see them, so just say yes or no, and we'll get into it. But wanted to start with some commentary, especially given the stuff that I've been witnessing and seeing and all those things online doing this. Look, the sad truth is that we live in a really shallow world made up of really shallow people with shallow attention spans and shallow interests, very shallow willpower and shallow desire, seeking shallow stimulus and shallow social proof. Social proof being what someone else says online as mattering more so, even when people cry out evidence-based results, they actually want to just believe in someone. So media, social media, TV, we actually had to create Instagram because Facebook posts were taking too long for people to read and follow, and they wanted something faster. Give me pictures. Like, we're catering to 9-year-olds now. So, and now Instagram has taken off and everyone's abandoning Facebook because who has the time? Give me stimulus, give me stimulus, give me stimulus. And this is what I'm talking about with the shallowness and how it's confusing knowledge from popularity. So media, social media, they aim to cater to this lowest common denominator idiot mindset rather than nudging people to be better, to dig deeper, to reach higher, to think deeper. So we look at reality TV, news story. Just yesterday, I was putting this together, And there was a story on Headline News, which I watch while I'm eating my oatmeal with my flaxseed and my chia seed. And there was a story on how a lady was sentenced to only 3 months in jail or 6 months in jail. Should have been life just for general stupidity. But she ended up killing her boyfriend. She shot him with a gun through a book because they wanted to do it as a YouTube stunt because they thought if they did it, it would go viral. So he's dead. She's in jail. And this is the kind of nonsense that we cater to. Or what about the Desperate Housewives, where you turn on this nonsense and all you get is people throwing drinks on each other and yelling and screaming at each other. And we want to keep dumbing down and catering to the stimulus addict out there and wondering what the effect is. Well, this is dangerous ground when you consider that all forms of energy are contagious. You're watching Jerry Springer. You're watching these idiots on TV. You're numbing your mind to go deeper, reach higher, be better. And people don't seem to understand you can invest time or you can spend time. I know myself and Andy, when we have time on our hands, we invest it. Whereas other people, they got time on their hands, what do? They sleep in, they take a nap, they social media surf other people's lives for whatever reason. But this is dangerous ground when you start talking about knowledge versus expertise and social media popularity versus what expertise is. Did you want to chime in anything, buddy, or do you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, no, keep going. Yeah, that's. Right. I agree with everything you just said. I don't get it. It's crazy.
Well, you and I don't get it, and this leads to the next slide, right? So people out there, make sure you're reacting, sharing, commenting, whatever. I got your comments right here. So, this often makes it difficult to even want to be present on social media, trying to dispense knowledge and expertise to compete against some talentless twit who will get 1 million followers merely by posting softcorn pictures of their hot ass with the insinuation, I must know what I'm talking about because look at my hot ass. Now, this should only cater to other twits, but sadly it doesn't. Popularity, and I spelled that word deliberately on purpose as pup, as in puppy, as in stimulus addict, is now being confused with reputation. And we need to stop the nonsense of that because it's very, very difficult to come across and fight with popularity. And we cater to the lowest common denominator. We violate the Darwinian survival of the fittest notion. But what is that notion? Well, it's really, we dumb down social media and stuff because the more conniving and intelligent people use it to cater to the really, really dumb out there because you can sell dumb people a lot of stuff because, as W.C. Fields said, a fool and his money are soon parted. So what happens out there is we end up with the reality of the Kardashian effect where someone with no talent that anyone can explain can end up earning hundreds of millions of dollars for no particular reason. And then everyone wants to follow suit to the point where a couple think it's a good idea to put a bullet in him through a book, and he ends up dead, she ends up in jail. And this isn't the survival of the fittest. This is catering to the lowest common denominator idiot, because when you do, you can sell stuff to them. And when you're on my side of the things where you're trying to educate and create a knowledge base, it gets hard to fight with that. Now, there's also been an expose in Australia this week on fitness models and things like that, and how dangerous it is to listen to them, things like that. In research on performance and peak performance, Dr. C and the book Talent is Overrated, if anyone wants to check that out, it's been well established in the research that it takes about 10,000 hours of study and applied work to become a true expert at anything. If you do the math in terms of how many years that equates to, it's a lot of years. All right. And that's working every day with a passion. It's something you believe in or something that drives you. But this 10,000 hours of study and applied work should not be equated and confused with 10,000 selfies of your ass or your six pack or 10,000 followers who don't know the difference. Popularity is the online game, but it's not expertise. Now, before I get to the training model, someone will say, well, you and Andy show pictures of Andy's six-pack abs all the time. As a matter of fact, today on Instagram, I got a picture of me and Andy with Andy showing his six-pack abs. Here's where the confusion gets going on places on social media that caters to idiots. Andy's not my protege because he has six-pack abs all year long, 365 days a year for 10 years. He has six-pack abs all year long, 360, because he's my protege. What does that mean? Well, it means he attended all my workshops. He got all my books. He's done all my programs. And in 13 years of checking in, now he's on his own, but in 13 years as checking in as a client, he illustrated his grasp of the methodology, the science, the application, and the cycle diet. So we use that as social proof of a knowledge base, not the other way around. Listen to me because I have abs. It's more having the knowledge base produces this effect that is realistic in real world time. Having a 21-year-old online who's done maybe 3 years of work in genetically endowed body isn't going to get you very far when you think, I'm going to follow them because look how they look. I'll get a little bit of that. So that's my rant on that. That has nothing to do with tonight's conversation, but it gets frustrating watching real experts, like I said, C. Colin Campbell and Michael Greger, people like myself who've devoted a lifetime to a career, and watch people that have been around all of 10 minutes make ridiculous comments, and we're supposed to take them seriously because they've declared themselves to be the competition. And it just gets to the point of being ridiculous, where you start chasing likes rather than trying to have a specific effect that people will follow. So comment on that, buddy, and then I'll move on to the lecture at hand.
Yeah, I am the Abel approach, I was going to say. I'm 14 years of practical application of it. The word became flesh, right? So
that's the way to put it. Yep, the word became flesh. And that's what we're trying to get across, right? And then now we're going to go through, the training model and why it matters. So the training model, for people who don't know, in my book, hopefully you can see that behind me, the Abel approach there, second edition. It's a tool used by professionals, or at least people under me, to illustrate where blocks for individual performance and results may lie. It's also an essential for knowledgeable program design. And the training model is composed of the following 5 stages: effort, training strategy, workload capacity, recovery capacity, internal hormonal and biochemical environment. So the point there is, if you aren't assessing, then you're just guessing. But don't confuse assessing with measuring. Too much of how much you bench, how many calories you take in, how long your workouts are, how long should I rest between sets. Those are measuring items that don't matter. It's all listed in the Abel approach, where we talk about external cues versus internal cues, and that's a big difference as well. So anything on that one, buddy, before I move on?
Nope, keep going.
All right. So each of these components of the training model reflects on the other one in direct and reciprocal ways that should both inform and direct your training protocol and how to design programs. This is why I always say in my books and lectures, etc., a collection of exercises does not equate to an effective and productive workout necessarily, and why a collection of workouts does not equate to an effective and productive program. So that's important. And then I'll get comments like, but coach, I do 5 boot camp classes a week. Why isn't my body changing? People don't seem to get this, and this is another reason why failure to reach and sustain fitness goals is much higher than is permanent transformation success in this industry. People don't have anything to go on. When you get certified, you don't do anything that amounts to having an understanding, 1, of the principles of exercise physiology, and 2, how to design programs in terms of assessing the individual in front of you. And that becomes very, very important as well. So therefore, the training model should be the assessment tool used to design programs, not vogue trends, not genetically elite physiques, and not opinion of gym rats. Like, it amazed me when that guy, Rich Piana or whatever, 2 million followers. I mean, it was obviously a caricature of drug abuse, and then 2 million followers, and he ends up dead. Why so many followers? Who wants to follow down that path? Most of those followers were people who were never going to take performance enhancing drugs at that level. And then they're thinking that there's some benefit to following someone like that. And that's the confusion where it shows up online. Program design is where science and research should matter, but doesn't seem to in the online social media world and in certification. And we'll get to that as well. So underlining each element of the training model are the principles of exercise physiology and energy systems. So overload or adaptive response, the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands, aerobic energy pathways, anaerobic energy pathways, and various kinds of strength, everything from speed strength, explosive strength, limit strength, aerobic strength, etc. The programs that I sell online for general consumption, Hard Gainer Solution, Disney Woman Train at Home, Physique After 50, Abs by Andy, Great Glutes at Home, etc., all are designed based on following the training model and what it tells us. So we're going to break that down into each component. Any thoughts before I move on there?
Nope. Let's get right to the effort.
So let's okay. So 5 components, all right, of the training model is effort, training strategy, work capacity, recovery capacity, internal biochemical hormonal environment. Effort. Well, we got to talk about what it is, what it isn't, and how it informs us in terms of assessment. Misinformed effort, misapplied effort, misdirected effort. The example I use on the Abel approach is, let's say I plan a vacation, I'm going to drive to Florida and spend 2 weeks in Florida. Well, I take the car, I get it tuned up, I get the tires filled, I check the oil, everything's ready to go. And then I head out from, here in Canada and I drive north. Well, if I'm driving north and I'm expecting to spend 2 weeks in Florida, I'm never going to get there, no matter how well my engine's running, how maintained my car is. I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm applying effort in the wrong way because it's misdirected. Junk volume training is the same thing. Cardio machines as a warm-up or a few minutes after training as a cool down is a waste of time and effort. And you have to be able to assess where someone is at effort-wise, where they've been investing their effort, where they've been uselessly spending their effort, and that is something you do during the assessment. For weight training workouts, GPP should resemble something like this link that you see right here. So I'm going to try to blow that up for you. And you can come back and copy that link, or Perry can put it in the notes, and I'll just post it online here. And it's funny, a client got back to me today and said, well, Scott, I was doing my GPP in the gym, and one of the gym rats came up to me and said, I look like a fool swinging my arms like that. And I said, really? Isn't that interesting? He looks like a fool walking on a treadmill to do a warm-up for 10 minutes or sitting on a bike and calling that a warm-up for 10 minutes, but it would take someone with a knowledge of exercise physiology to actually know that. So, it's very, very difficult to try to explain concepts that require knowledge to people who aren't knowledge-based. So, and they're just following vogue trends. So very, very important stuff. And I'm sure you've seen it as well, Andy, right?
Oh yeah, it's effort's one of those things. It's either non-existent or it's very misapplied, right? So actually, there's a good quote from the Abel approach from Dr. Scott Conley from 1995, just talking about typically in the gym you find 2 populations of people. You find one group who is consistently training with a stimulus that is insufficient in terms of not having enough volume, or 10 people are training fanatically. Both groups usually experience very little, if any, substantial progress over time, right? So you take a look at like the boot camp classes, right? People are, they're running up flights of stairs, they're, doing box jumps, they're doing battle ropes, and I mean, we're gonna
get to that. It's
and then other people were sitting on a bench for 10 minutes, in between sets texting, right? So
so that's, and assessing someone who first comes to you in terms of effort, what efforts are they capable of? And that requires assessing what they've been doing, where they've been at. My heart goes out to people, for instance, the ladies who come to me who have destroyed their metabolisms, because they have applied a lot of effort in low carb diets and keto nonsense and the rest of it. So they really have applied effort, but it's been misinformed, misdirected, and misapplied. And then by the time they get to me, their system is exhausted, and I have to take that into consideration as well. So the very first part of the training model, effort, shows you that assessment is an ongoing thing, and it starts right from the beginning. I'll get to it in training strategy. So let me just pause here. Jason's just saying, in the hard gainer, you mentioned to keep a buffer of 2 to 4 reps in the tank. Does that apply only to HGS, or do you normally recommend it across the board? Well, no, that's a great point. I probably would cover this in a more generic way later on in the webinar, Jason, but that does apply specifically to the HGS, and that's where we're going to get to tactics versus strategy. Strategy is program design. Tactics is program implementation or workout implementation. So that's a really, really good question. Hopefully my answer made sense there. So point number 2, training strategy. Training strategy needs to be related to goals, but it also needs to be related to the next parts of the training model: work capacity, recovery capacity, internal biochemical hormonal environment. Ask most people what their training strategy is, and they have no idea beyond the words, I want to exercise, or to burn calories, or I want to look better. That's not a strategy. That's a dream. That's a fantasy. That has a non-specific target. And keep in mind, like I said, strategy and tactics are not the same thing. So someone comes to me with these goals, their training strategy has to formulate around what is their current work capacity? What is their current or athletic background? What have they been used to doing? For instance, Krista came up to me a couple of weeks ago, and Krista had a friend that wanted to come to the gym and start training with her, and hasn't been to the gym in 15 years, but does physical labor for work. Well, the first thing, and Krista was like, well, what do you suggest? And I said, well, what I suggest is you don't let her come to the gym with you. You will destroy her. She hasn't been to the gym in 15 years. And if you watch Krista work out, do 20 sets of squats and deadlifts in a workout, that would absolutely destroy somebody, because they wouldn't have the work capacity, they wouldn't have the recovery capacity, they wouldn't have the internal biochemical hormonal environment to just start at that level. So a lot of the times with me, people will hear me say cardio is useless, and then they'll say, well, Scott, I heard you got so-and-so doing cardio. Well, if so-and-so is 100 pounds overweight, part of their training strategy is to just get exercising in any way, shape, or form possible, and use the 100 pounds of being overweight as resistance. So use body weight as fat as a dumbbell and use it as resistance just to establish a training base. So this is how training strategy relates to effort, relates to work capacity. What am I leaving out, brother, that you want to put in there?
No, that's awesome. That
sums it up.
Yeah. That's it all.
So the next purpose on the training model agenda is workload capacity. And that's a key tool for assessment, and where we see how and why it all starts to make sense and fit together for any individual trainee. Someone who has been training for years and years, someone who hasn't trained in years, like I just said, should they really be doing the same workout programs? Here we go. Here is my, my pet peeve, if you will, with the nonsense of boot camp classes. How can a boot camp class accommodate those who have different current work capacities and recovery capacities? Oh, I joined a gym. I'm not comfortable being by myself. I think I want to do classes. Oh, hop into that class. When can you train? Well, before work every day at 6 o'clock. Oh, okay, well, there's a 6 o'clock class here. There just happens to be a 6 o'clock class. Just come on in and join. That's no assessment at all, other than what's convenient for you to work out. Come and join this class. And that's dangerous. It's ridiculous. It has no assessment criteria to the individual at all in terms of what efforts are they capable of, what training strategy do they need to reach their goals. It's just, give us your money and we'll herd you over here because that's what you said you want to do. And it should be the gym itself that's making these assessments and saying, well, wait a minute, that's maybe not your best fit based upon our assessment of your current work capacity. Your better training strategy would be to do this. For instance, someone does a boot camp class 5 or 6 days a week. They're what we call the regulars. Another person comes in, just joins the gym. They're going to that same 6 a.m. Boot camp class because then they've got to go to work, and that's what fits their agenda. But they're going 2 to 3 times a week. They haven't been to a gym in 5 to 10 years. One's overweight, one's not. How does that fit any kind of assessment criteria where one size fits all? It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't address work capacity, fitness levels, training strategy, effort. Again, you can see it all starts to break down, and this is why I did the Abel Approach book, why I did the Program Design Masterclass, where we actually deconstruct, reconstruct programs and show the difference. And Jason's good question about the hard gainer, you can see I start to differentiate between demographic types and say they need this kind of workout, but they need to apply it in this kind of way. And that's where you go from strategy, which is program design, to tactical, which is program implementation and or workout, what to do within the workout. So if one person is 40 pounds overweight and the other is in shape, not overweight, who benefits the most, and why is this an equal training strategy for both? Simply, it's not. So very, very different. So this is what I call the law of least eligibility. Now, this is one of my terms. So I was going to put that in quotes, but I can't get past the microphone. So the law of least eligibility is, in that previous boot camp scenario, the less fit person in the room receives the most adoptive stimulus. The most fit person in the room receives little or any adoptive stimulus. If you've always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you've always got. Just because your heart is beating faster isn't indicative of an adoptive response that indicates progress. So you watch these people coming in and out of these workouts of the day in CrossFit or these boot camp classes at your local gym that are all done before work. And the said principle dictates that doing these classes only makes you more fit for those classes. That's about it. It doesn't do anything for fat burning, really. It doesn't do anything for physique sculpting. You're not going to change your body by following these. You'll burn a few calories. And sure, that's sexy, I guess, but it doesn't lead to anything that's going to be progressive. And it's like the old Seinfeld episode with Danya, do you work out? And then at the beginning of it, the whole Seinfeld thing is the whole purpose of working out is so that you can go work out again. And then, that's kind of the nonsense of do a boot camp class and you think you're more fit than the person you see, like me, who, people give me the sideways look if I'm grunting and groaning on an exercise, not understanding anything about work capacity, recovery capacity, working to maximum or optimum work capacity. So they look and see someone resting between sets, and I think I'm more fit than them because I'm doing a burpee between my running up one flight of stairs and down, and my heart rate's up. I'm more fit than you. No, you're not. It's the said principle, specificity dictates that we're doing completely different things. And if that person who's boot camp fit joined me for a week of my workouts, they wouldn't be able to walk for 2 weeks. So it's that kind of thing. They wouldn't be able to reach for the peanut butter jar in their cupboard, but they don't make that assessment. They think that I grunt and groan because I'm not in shape. Well, I'm probably in better shape than 90% of the people doing the boot camp class. I could train with them. They would never be able to train with me. And yet it takes an understanding of the principles of exercise physiology to even know that. So chime in there, buddy, and then I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, a question I always ask on my assessments is athletic background. So if somebody played, Division I football in college compared to somebody that hasn't played sports since T-ball when they were 6 years old, I mean, there's going to be a huge workload capacity difference there, right? And what they can handle, just right off the bat if you go through athletic background, right? So it definitely gives you some insight into what they can, what they can probably handle.
Yeah, and that's because the nervous system adopts, and I explain that in the Abel approach as well. I use the analogy of a baby learning to walk, and how the nervous system coordinates to the muscles. And if you have any kind of athletic background, you're different than someone who does not, and that kind of thing. So really, really important stuff. Now, number 4 in the training model is recovery capacity. So the law of least eligibility speaks to adaptive response, but it doesn't speak to the person's current work capacity level or their recovery needs. Now, what am I saying there? I'm saying that person that just joined the gym and says, I'm not comfortable training alone. I want to go to a class, but I want to do it before work. Oh, great. We have a 6 a.m. class. Just join them every morning at 6 a.m. Well, yes, they will get the most stimulus, but it might be too much stimulus because no one's assessing their recovery needs. And if they're coming into that with no athletic history, no recent training background, no conditioning at all, then you're giving someone something they can't adapt to. And you want the body to be adapting, not adopted, but you also want it to be able to respond. So, and you don't want to demotivate people by having them be so sore and feel so out of shape that they can't train at all. So that's really, really important. And most trainers, especially teachers of classes and things, they only think about exercise stimulus. They never think about recovery demands, and that makes no sense, especially as the population ages. Recovery demands is going to be the key component to training strategy, because you have to assess work capacity, diminished work capacity as the body ages. And that's just a reality that we all need to take into account. So my hard gainer solution, my physique after 50, the Busy Woman's Train at Home program, they are all designed based on the training model, meaning that recovery capacity is a major assessment component of any program because it has to be. So when you're assessing effort, training strategy, work capacity, recovery capacity, internal biochemical hormonal environment, you need to assess age, training background, current work capacity, where's someone at, workout type. Like I said, boot camp classes to burn calories doesn't equate to any kind of goal that someone's usually wanting for themselves. And if you look at people 6 months after doing boot camp, very few of them ever change. That's the one observation that's pretty easy to make. Stage of life, menopause, sleep patterns, medications, diet and lifestyle. These are all elements of recovery capacity assessments and considerations. And this goes back to the first stuff I talked about in the commentary section. Looking at someone who has a hot body, who doesn't understand any of this stuff, and you want to look like them, doesn't mean you do what they do and the way they do it. And it doesn't mean that they understand how any of this stuff applies to you. So this is a really, really important stuff, and people don't seem to understand it because they think it's a one-directional method of A to B format, and that's not how the body responds. The body is never linear. It might seem linear for a short time period, but it's never linear. So the body goes through periods of adaptive response plateau, adaptive response plateau, et cetera, et cetera. So finally, internal biochemical hormonal environment. Biological age is important. What's biological age? Well, it's assessing how healthy and fit someone is in terms of how they relate to each other. Does the person smoke? Do they have diabetes? Are they overweight? Do they have health problems? Gender enters into this. Stress levels enters into this. Medications enter into this. Menopause, sarcopenia for people 50 and over, joint health, metabolism, diet. These are general things that can affect internal biochemical hormonal environment, and they must be taken into consideration. My book, Physique After 50, and the program in it is all about these specific internal biochemical hormonal environments as they apply to people over 50. So you can see how when I make programs to sell online to a specific demographic, it still adheres to the principles of exercise physiology and the training model in terms of program design. If not, you just don't write eight exercises on the board, on a whiteboard, because this is what you feel like today, and this will get everyone's heartbeat up. that has no bearing on anything at all. And it's not even, I would like to say it's a kindergarten approach, but I don't even think that's kindergarten qualified. So, this is where it gets to be frustrating when you're watching people who think they know what they're doing, leading other people who don't know what they're doing, and you just shrug your shoulders. So this is why blended age groups doing fitness classes can be dangerous. We watch at our gym people doing battling ropes that are my age, or females that are overweight, and they're jarring their shoulder joints and their elbows, and they're doing ballistic plyo stuff that they should not be doing. Very, very dangerous to joint health, to recuperative demands. So you've got someone in there who's 35, who's been training 10 years, teaching the class, and they're hopping up on one leg and they're battling ropes. And then you've got the 50-year-old whose kids are finally out of the house and they decide that they're not comfortable to train, on their own. When they join a gym, they want to be in a group class, but they have to do it before work. And they walk in at 50 years old and they join this class and they're doing everything they shouldn't be doing. And they're hurting themselves regardless of feeling stimulated after the workout. So this is really, really important. And then we talk about, as Jason mentioned, tactical approaches within the strategical approaches of program design. So tactical approaches, for instance, a natural trainee versus performance enhancing drug trainee. The natural trainee should never train to failure, whereas someone taking a boatload of performance enhancing drugs can train to failure based on the realities of this internal biochemical hormonal environment and recovery. And it's funny, I was saying to Mike a couple of weeks ago, I'll let you chime in here, Andy, in a second, and then I'll get to your comments, folks. But I was talking to Mike, and I happened to, by accident, someone sent me a link to something, and it led to something else. And I tripped over a popular pro bodybuilder, I don't know popular now, but popular 5 years ago, and it was doing an exercise demo online, and it was obviously the off season because this person didn't look good at all. Like, just looked like a box with a head. The waist was as wide as the shoulders. Nothing impressive about it at all, with a gazillion followers because of the pro status and being in shape for 4 weeks a year. And then all these people following them, I'm sure, think, well, I just won't take the drugs. It's kind of like that Rich Piana example. I just won't take the drugs, but I'll do everything else they say because they must know what they're doing. Well, look at their bodies in the off season when nothing's on the line and they're not on a boatload of drugs getting ready for a contest. They look terrible. They don't look like Andy looks 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So people don't learn from that, though. They don't educate themselves. They don't see what they need to see. They see through the blinders of perception, and that's a sad part. So go ahead, buddy. You can comment on that, and I'll move to the next.
Yeah, I'm actually doing the Physique After 50 program right now. A lot of people don't realize I'm actually 74 years old, so this is what it does for you. But
yeah.
But I mean, wow. It fits my need state right now, right? So you don't actually have to be over 50 for a program like that to benefit you. So.
But again, we go through the training model steps.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
What's your effort base? This is the training strategy. Does it fit your current work capacity? Yes, it does. Does it fit your current recovery capacity? 6-day program? Yes, it does. Does it fit your internal biochemical hormonal environment of being a healthy mid-30s aged man, not under the influence of any drugs or medications? Yes, it does. So, this is how we can broad base certain programs, but not certain ideas like boot camp classes that certainly just don't make any sense. So
people trying to exhaust themselves for the sake of exhausting themselves, basically. That's what a boot camp class is.
Well, and that goes back to point number one, effort, right? Like it used to be that non-effort was the effort when back in Body by Jake, when they would sell these ridiculous things online like Thigh Masters and whatnot, and the ab rocker, where you rock your way to fitness. And then the pendulum swung completely the other way, where now we have the nonsense where all it takes is all you've got. And if you're not crawling at the gym, if you're not crawling back to the dressing room, then, you haven't worked hard enough. And as much as Andy says he's 74, I got to say I'm 37. I just have 20 years experience. So that's my line when I'm going with that one. So, but let's get back to the training model. all these elements affect each other and influence each other. Hopefully that makes sense. I explain it in, a whole chapter in the Abel approach, and in the program design masterclass, you see how it leads to, there's all kinds of programs in the program design masterclass where we reconstruct and deconstruct programs based upon this. Now, with every element of the training model, we also have the realms of time to consider as well in terms of training and diet adaptive response, the immediate, the residual, and the cumulative. And that complicates expertise a little bit, but that's what makes expertise. Now, in terms of, this just popped into my head, it's kind of unrelated to the topic, but in terms of the realms of time with diet and training, the immediate, the residual, the cumulative, I hope people saw my previous Facebook posts today. If you haven't, as soon as we're done, go look at it. It's, just caught somebody who was just done lecturing from Yale University about keto nonsense. And it explains these elements of time. And it also explains things I've been saying to you for weeks and weeks and weeks about the politics for profit of selling people nonsense and how that all works. So that's just a little sidebar, but make sure you watch that it's only 2 minutes. Watch that video. It's very succinct and well said and worth a listen. So the most common mistakes when it comes to not understanding the principles of exercise physiology, and it comes to not abiding in the training model and vice versa, is you get an emotional bias toward pop culture, vogue trends, doesn't get you very far. If it takes you away from following the sound principles in regards to what kind of training produces what kind of results. You can walk into the gym and think you want to sculpt the body and walk on a treadmill and put it on an incline and put some tubing between your legs and do some IT band work. But all you're doing there is following a vogue trend. You're not addressing your needs state at all. So when it comes to that, let's stop pretending that there's magic tools. All right. If you're an expert, a true expert, then training implements are just tools in the toolbox, much like a plumber and a carpenter has tools in the toolbox. So there's no magic tools. And it's so ridiculous that we have certifications in kettlebells and TRX and rings. Why not a certification for the adjustable bench? Let's have a certification in that. The real and true magic tool is your body and how it functions in various ranges and planes of motion, and degrees of motion and things like that. So take the term cardio, for instance. If your goal is a leaner, more fit and tight appearing body, then cardio isn't the form of training that takes you there. Too often, ladies in particular make the mistake of thinking cardio, and then they're disappointed when they finally do lose a little bit of weight. Their proportions are exactly the same, only smaller. And then there's the suffragette in terms of that effort again, how much effort went in for the lack of progress that came out. And that's usually an imbalance that's self-defeating in nature. So we see the same with these boot camp classes. These myths are fed by and feed into the whole mistaken calorie burning mantra of exercise. And calorie burning, again, to point number 5 of the training model, is not the only hormonal and biochemical environment consideration. So continuing on, and then we're going to get to some comments. In terms of common mistakes, thinking that workouts need to focus on calorie burning effects is a mistake. This doesn't have a lot to do with transforming a physique from a soft body to a lean body or a hard body that most people are seeking. There's very few people that ever come to someone like me or Andy saying they really don't care how they look. They just want to get fit. I don't think, maybe it's 1 in 500 that comes and says that. So most people want some cosmetic result for the time and effort they're going to devote, since time is such a precious commodity these days. So anyway, many a time ladies have written me worried when I change their programs that a new program isn't metabolic enough, and now it's therefore easier. For one, a program is as hard or as easy as you make it, depending on whether you work to optimum or maximum work capacity. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about myself grunting and groaning in the gym, because after 4 decades of training, I can more efficiently tap into maximum work capacity than can someone else. But they also worry they're going to get fat because their training is not metabolic. They're not doing 10 burpees between sets of bicep curls. So, like the boot camp mentality, right? But they don't realize that metabolic training can't be sustained and shouldn't be sustained because it debilitates and dysregulates the internal biochemical hormonal environment. So the bigger picture isn't about calorie consumption of a workout. It's the overall ongoing augmentation of biochemical hormonal processes that set up the body to adopt in cosmetically enhancing ways. Cosmetically enhancing diet, cosmetically enhancing foods, cosmetically enhancing workouts that just happen to be bodybuilding workouts. So none of this is going to happen if your only workout concern is about burning calories. And also same with diet. Metabolism has to be fed, not starved. So if you keep thinking you're not getting lean enough, so you'll cut more calories, you're just going to regress and repress your metabolism and make your scenario even worse. Tissue building is of equal importance of calorie burning and is often incompatible with calorie burning workouts. Hence, assessment of work capacity and training strategy become important elements of consideration that you need to take account of. This is all written in the Abel approach. And then it's explained in there, the training model, and then the program design masterclass takes it a whole bunch of steps further by looking at actual programs that I've made over the years, reconstructing them, deconstructing them. We turn 5-day programs into 3-day programs. We turn advanced programs into intermediate programs and show how and why they fit the training model and how and why they abide in the principles of exercise physiology. So that is pretty important stuff, and yet pretty much everybody is blind to it in the training world, which is really mind-boggling to me. So comments, buddy, and then we'll get to everyone else's comments. So
there just seems to be so much monkey see, monkey do stuff now. Like people, they'll see exercises on YouTube or online somewhere or, in magazines, and then it's just, that's all their programs are, is just, I saw so-and-so do this, so now I'm going to do it, right? So, it really makes no sense outside of that.
Yeah, and like I said, I watch these instructors write out programs on a whiteboard. Well, not programs, sorry. That's an insult to me. They write out workouts, for their boot camp class on a whiteboard, and I just want to walk up to them and say, why? Why does that exercise follow that exercise? What's the training strategy there in terms of today's boot camp class? For that lady over there who's 45 years old, who's 5'2" and about 170 pounds, who's purple in the face every time she comes out of there, how is this exercise structure compatible with that particular person? Oh, and beside her is a guy I talk to every day who does the boot camp classes, who's about 6'2" in his mid-30s and lean. Why are these two people doing the same workout, and why is your whiteboard, how is it reflective of that fitting both of those people equally? Answer me that. They can't answer anything. It's like, well, it's early in the morning, and I thought maybe, this many burpees is a good idea, and then we're going to run up and down one flight of stairs. It makes no sense. Anyway, that's that. Perry has just posted, and you can see that there, folks, a link to biological age, how you can do those assessments, not chronological age, although that has a lot to do with it. And that's important as well. So Jason's just saying, speaking of looking good for both Andy and Scott, do you feel that when you train, you're minimizing loss due to the inevitability of aging, keeping what you've previously built, or still improving? Well, that's an excellent question, Jason. Excellent. And this leads to the confusion that the consumer general trainee has about what they consider progress. It's amazing to me how one-dimensional people are when it comes to progress. People with metabolic damage only see progress as weight loss. Well, if your body's trying to repair and heal, weight loss is the last thing. If you're truly focused on repairing and healing metabolic damage, then weight loss is the last consideration, not the first consideration. Now, Andy and I would be different because of our age. I guess I would be training just because I love to train. I guess you could say I'm trying to minimize loss. I have a lot of limitations, especially with the arthritis in my shoulders, which is living the inevitability of aging. Andy just has to face that it's coming. So there's very different things. You have to remember that I was still guest posing at age 44, and I was still 260 pounds under the influence of PEDs. So, and now I'm paying the price for that in my joint health. So that's something, I don't really consider, am I going to make progress? My ego is more tied up in my expertise than it is in my physique. My physique, no longer is one of those that's going to turn heads in the gym. I'm 57 years old. Sometime I wish it would, like it used to, so I could just straighten some people out, because you see some real nonsensical stuff. I'll give you an example. Andy and I were laughing because there's two guys my age that come into the gym. They train together. They bench press. One's bench pressing. The other is holding the bar, standing behind him, looking like he's doing half an upright row and half a deadlift. And whenever they get to a working weight, after every set, you can hear them say to each other, I didn't help you at all. I wasn't helping you at all. That was all you. And recently, one of them, for whatever reason, wasn't around for like 5 or 6 weeks. And I made the observation to Andy that it was so comical because with the absence of the partner holding the bar while the guy's bench pressing and practically lifting it for him, with the absence of his partner there, he didn't bench press that whole time. So if you truly, I wasn't helping, that was all you. If that was truly true, then why would you need to abandon the bench press at all just because your partner's not there? Even if you train just a little bit lighter, that wouldn't make sense. So this is the kind of comedy of errors that we witness in the gym all the time, and yet a client is writing me saying that someone made fun of him because he's doing my GPP warm-up with the arm swings. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, Maddox is just saying, hey, Coach and Andy, it's Maddox just wanting to make a comment. I have a bunch of education and fitness experience, yet I learn every time when listening to your lectures. Deeply appreciate it. Well, we appreciate people being out there. For instance, I'm a little disappointed, to tell you the truth, Maddox, that there's so few people that I see that are with us right now tonight. So, sometimes, like I said, when I consider social media and I consider our presence on there and I consider the numbers that I get and the expertise that I have, versus some 21-year-old who has, 250,000 followers for no particular reason, who's spouting off complete nonsense. It gets hard to show up, but if you make a difference in one person's life, I've got a lot of people off of their diabetic meds. They've lost over 100 pounds. That to me is worth more than all the people I help win pro cards and national championships by obsessing about their bodies in very unhealthy ways and taking boatloads of performance-enhancing drugs, of which I was, a card-carrying member of that club as well. Let's not pretend that I wasn't. But I also, just like breaking vegan, I also left that world when I could no longer rationalize being part of the problem and not part of the solution. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just saying you also knew how to transcend that though too. I mean, we both know a lot of people that will probably never leave that world, right? So, and it's kind of sad, right? People that are pushing 50 or in their 50s and they're still holding on to hardcore bodybuilding
or ego training, like the bench pressers. Like this, just I remember putting a confused look on their face because they asked me one day something about bench press. I said, "Well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to bench press more weight, or are you trying to develop your chest?" And that I might as well have been speaking Chinese because it confused both of them. So this goes back to that kindergarten knowledge again, right? Like it's just like a question that basic, produce the deer in headlights look. Like, well, I never thought about it. Then why are you doing it? That's the thing. I mean, we think about everything we're doing when we're in there. That's whole part of, the whole concentration base.
No, I know exactly what I'm doing. Every day I show up, I don't just, pick a bunch of random exercises and have at it, right? But that seems to be the norm. I mean, I see people all the time that, they're just kind of, what should I train today? When they're in there with their buddies, right? And they just kind of pick a bunch of different exercises and, and that's their workout. They've probably been doing the same workouts for 10 years. And I mean, that's why they don't That's why their bodies don't change, right? So
yeah, they don't understand about adaptation and ranges and planes of motion. And Tony's making a good point, just saying I think most people forget it's called bodybuilding, not body destroying.
yeah.
And that seems to be the new workout mantra, Tony. Again, like seeing how much up somebody can take and calling that training is just as ridiculous as having people do nothing. Like trainers standing beside the treadmill talking to their client while they're walking on the treadmill and then charging them $60 for that. Like that makes no sense to me. So James is also a doctor, and James is just saying MD Maddox brings up something I've shared with Coach that I've de-learned almost as much as I learned by following the coach. So yeah, you have to de-gift before you re-gift. And so that's another Seinfeld. So Mike is just saying about what you talked about at the start. You just stated time is a precious commodity. You sell knowledge and expertise to develop a physique, which takes a lot of time. Those others sell fast and easy, that one special trick or exercise that's not going to take time. So people are always looking for the shortcut because you said time is a precious commodity. Time is the most precious commodity. And then people don't look at time as that element. Are you investing it? Are you spending it? Are you saving it? All of those things that matter. So when I invest in a project, like when Andy and I did Abs by Andy last year and Hard Gainer Solution last year, man, that was a ton of work. But it's an investment of our time. We could have said, I'll meet you for coffee, and that's too much work. Not even thought about it. We'll meet for coffee. You surf Facebook on the people you know, and I'll surf and waste my time. Oh, there's wasted time that factors in there. And we'll do nonsensical, stuff that just stimulates. But now, we put investment into those products. Those products help people along the lines of helping people. After making that product as an investment in time, it's also an investment in money because those things will earn income for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So it's all about knowing that an investment of time will pay off in the things that people think matter more. So I see time as my most precious commodity, what I'm going to do with it, because it serves my second most precious commodity, which of course is having an income that allows me to lead a comfortable life. So people look at it the other way around. How much money am I earning? I'm looking at it like, how much time do I have to invest in a specific way that earns me money and allows me to live a life where I can enjoy each day and not struggle with it. You can comment on that if you want, buddy.
No, I agree completely. It's nice to do something that you love and be able to make money from it, right? That's really the dream, the goal in life. That's how you win at life, right? Do something you love.
People will often, I'm getting a little off topic, but people often ask me, oh, well, what are your goals now? And I think they think I'm going to come up with some, I have no bucket list. I have no goals. My biggest working concern each and every day is how much time to devote to my craft and how much time to devote to enjoying my day. That is living a life of contentment. That's the Zen issue. Earn it, but enjoy it. And not just, I don't get how the North American mindset still considers that busyness is equal to productiveness, and that busyness is something to brag about. I'll brag about, how much time I don't work every day. So, and I've specifically designed a life that fits that. So, while other people are chasing tails, I've been able to live a pretty solid semi-retired life for the last 25 years or so, doing exactly what I want, when I want, and how I want to do it. So, and you're kind of following in the same, the same stead. So that's pretty good as well. So Perry's just mentioning some guy in his gym that, a typical, like our bench pressers, moves the leg press, probably got it loaded with 10 plates aside and has legs like spaghetti, and he moves it 3 inches and, tricep extensions and, just like, yeah. So, I mean, we could do a whole episode on the comedy of errors we see in the gym. But I think that's where we should tie it up. So again, program design masterclass. If you want to take a course and learn how to apply the training model and how it fits with the elements of time and how it fits with the principles of exercise physiology, which most trainers don't even know, which boggles my mind how that is not number one in certification. I don't know. But don't forget also the reality principle that we're all about truth here, truth serum. And like I said in the beginning, Andy isn't my protege because he has six-pack abs all year round. He has six-pack abs all year round because he's my protege and because he's applied the principles for 13 years. So Jason's just saying, thinking of some long-term overall programming with the goal of physique refinement to look great 365, thinking of hard gainer solution 1 to 2 times through, followed by the first 6-day program. Yeah, that would work. You don't have the physique after 50 yet, but yeah, so that works. Yeah, so like, and Tony's just saying, how times change. Back in the day, you wouldn't think of having a TV in a gym, and now there's multiple TVs going, but you don't even need the TVs anymore. Everyone's got one in their hand while they're working out. So who knows what they're watching and listening to and all those kind of things. So, I just, yeah, it's very, yep. And then Jason is just commenting on totally random comment that he went back and checked out my posing routines that I mentioned a few, and he loved the one me doing Jim Carrey as the mask. Well, that's the thing too, Jason, in terms of, I'll make this one short, but, I commented on how the competition industry, they like to simplify what's complicated and complicate what's simple. Here I was choreographing my own 4-minute routines to songs and movie characters and whatever for 4 minutes, choreographed to beats of music, et cetera, with no, I did that. And yet nowadays you need a coach in figure and bikini to turn sideways 4 times. I mean, it absolutely boggles my mind that this passes as legitimate. Do you know any posing coaches? I need a posing coach to turn 4 times on high heels. You need a posing coach for that? Are you friggin' kidding me? I did 4 and 5 minute routines to beats of the music on the beat that took months to prepare, but you need a posing coach to turn sideways in heels. Like,
it's wrong to teach you that.
It's mind-numbing how dumbed down the world has got. It's mind-numbing how catering to the lowest common denominator is just accepted. Oh, you got to have a posing coach. Seriously? Anyway, I think that's it for tonight, buddy. Wrap it up. Final comments on the Abel approach or the program design master or anything you want to comment on?
Yeah, I mean, the Abel approach is, I mean, that's one of the best resources I think I've ever read. I mean, it covers everything. If you're serious about physique enhancement or coaching anyone else, training anyone else, I mean, it's definitely a must-have on the bookshelf for sure. So,
and it's got programs in it as well, so people can see those. And yeah. So that's very important as well. So yeah. So yeah, I guess in the future we should have a couple refeeds doing the vegan thing so people can see. It's not that difficult. And then also, like I said, folks, go check out my my previous Facebook post on keto nonsense and the politics for profit. It's only 2 minutes long. It was very well stated, very good, very well done. So on that note, folks, hopefully you hit your share button. Hopefully you hit your emoticons and stuff. And it looks like people are signing off. So we will do the same. And we will see you next week.
Have a great weekend.